What is going on, everyone? My name is Thomas Minert. I'm an agent at Remax Precision. I'm a member of the Sphere Real Estate team, and this is Thomas Talks on Thursday. This is a live stream I do every week because I want to have more live discussions with my followers, my friends, my family, and answer questions about real estate topics that are important to you guys, not just talk about what is important to me. I wanted you guys to experience what it is like when you work with me and have live real estate discussions and my thought process, the way I think about real estate buying, selling, and my thought process is just the Des Moines area in general. I have a very special guest today, new team member of the Sphere Real Estate team in Des Moines. Steven, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the live stream. This is exciting. Yeah, my name is Steven Bunting. I'm coming up on my 5th year in real estate, and I just joined the Sphere team here in West Des Moines. I'm from the Ames area originally. My wife and I have been living in West Des Moines for about 6 years, but overall we've been in Des Moines probably 11 to 12 years now. But yeah, I've got 3 little kids, and we're in the West Des Moines area, and I love it. So it's nice to be closer to home.
Sweet. What got you into real estate?
So the previous job that I had, I was a project manager for a company that was, it's a mechanical insulation company, and I was kind of traveling quite a bit. And during COVID, they had me out on the East Coast. Our company was based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And so I was gone for 10 to 14 days at a time. And my wife and I got pregnant with our first child, our little daughter, and that kind of switched things up. I wanted to be closer to home. And so I had a couple fourplexes. Me and another partner had owned and rented out a couple fourplexes in the Ames area. And so I'd kind of had my hand in the investing side of things a little bit, getting our feet wet there. And we actually had an investor reach out, wanted to buy them off us. And so long story short, that was how I kind of dipped my toes into real estate. And then as a career change, I had a buddy reach out. He had a team out in Ankeny, a buddy from high school who does a really good job out there. And he was like, hey, I've got a team. It'd be awesome if you're thinking about potentially selling real estate. You should think about jumping on my team. So I jumped on over at Century 21 to start things off. And that's how I got going.
Nice.
Yep.
Having kids changes things. It changes definitely the way your life lives, changes what career you think might be important to you. And actually just went to Norwalk High School for career day the other day. And I talked about doing real estate and the flexible schedule that it gives you. Obviously, sometimes you're hamstrung by your clients and everything like that, but it's a really good opportunity if being around your kids is really, really important to you, and just having that access to help your kids out, help family members out, and everything like that is one of the biggest pluses. But you wanted to get on today, and we wanted to go more in depth about tips for people that are thinking about buying a home. And this isn't just first-time home buyers. It could potentially be your second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever home. These are tips that will help out anyone. So if anyone is watching this currently, I see quite a few people on already. If you have anything that worked well for you in the past, don't be afraid to comment. Or if you have any questions, don't be afraid to comment. We will answer them live. But I got a graphic pulled up with the first 5 that Steven thought about, and we're just going to go one by one and just have a discussion about them. So start with number 1.
Perfect. Okay. So the biggest one, and this seems like the easiest one, get financially prepared. But when I'm thinking about getting financially prepared, when it comes to real estate, that doesn't, it means getting your house in order, in my opinion. So that means look at your credit. Is there anything on your credit that you can clean up, that you can get financially ready? Getting your credit score above around that like 740 range is perfect, obviously. But, there's different options for a lot of people. And so the biggest thing is cleaning up some of your credit to start. Paying down debt is another one. These guys are going to look, depending if you're getting a loan, are going to look at your debt to income ratio. That's another big one. And so paying off, not having crazy car payments or, different loans out there is definitely going to help you. Saving for your down payment is another one. Your down payment and your closing costs. Closing costs could be 2 to 3% of the purchase price of the home that you're looking to purchase potentially. Down payment, everybody thinks, man, I got to put 20% down on a home to purchase. That's not the case. There are tons of different programs out there for first-time home buyers or, second, third-time home buyers. You can put down 3.5% to qualify and get down for a home. Avoiding opening new credit cards. That's another one too. Hey, don't just go out and start opening different lines of credit and things like that are going to nail you. And then truly getting pre-approved by a local lender so that you can know exactly your hard number on what you can go out and purchase. It's so easy for everybody because of Zillow, Realtor.com, all these amazing platforms that we have access to jump on and start browsing. And you're thinking, man, if my friend lives in this house, I got to be able to afford that house, or sometimes that's how people think, right? Where it's like, oh, hey, like I have a similar job or something like that. You can get on and start browsing, but truly talking with a local lender who can explain all of your financials easy for you to understand so that you know exactly what you're getting yourself into when you're getting ready to purchase is going to be huge. So
yeah, a few things that you triggered thoughts in my head there. One, the car, it can ruin your debt to income. So I talk to people about this a lot, especially people that I know are thinking about eventually buying, but are also like, man, I really, really need a new car. Buy the house first, then the car. Because car loan, I'm not telling you to get in a ton of debt, but it is much easier to get a car loan than it is a home mortgage. So your debt to income can look super clean for that home mortgage. And then after you get in the house, after you have closed, then you can start looking at getting that new car. And hopefully after you've gone through the whole pre-approval process with purchasing a home, it's a really, really good opportunity to like reassess your finances and get a really good feel for your fixed monthly expenses, your variable monthly expenses, and how much you can really afford per month. You should be in a really good position to know if you can afford that car as well too. The other thing to think about, you talked about down payment and you talked about like closing costs and everything like that too. A lot of people are in situations where they don't realize how much cash it really takes to move into a new house too, especially if you're moving. Like, for example, I bought my house in 2017 and I moved from a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment that I was sharing with someone to a house, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths that I was no longer sharing with anyone. So it's just expensive to furnish the house. It's expensive to move. And you got to think about those other cash considerations too. And then the other follow-up question I was going to ask you, as far as getting a pre-approval, when you start talking to buyers that you know are like going to buy sometime this year, how early do you tell them to get pre-approved?
I would say right away. It's one of the first steps because I think when you're buying a house, you got to have your team in order when you're ready to rock and roll. And so the thing you don't want to do is find this amazing house and then backtrack and be like, okay, now how do I finance it? Now, who do I call to get in and go do a showing? How does this work? You know what I mean? So the realtor, us, we can get them set up with local people that we work with on a regular basis that do an amazing job. Once they have their finances in order, they're able to go purchase that home. That way, if you're ever in a competing situation every home purchase is its own deal. And so you never know what you're going to get into, but you just want to be prepared as much as possible before you jump into anything so that you can be and put in kind of like your strongest foot forward. So,
right. We did have someone pop in with a question. Buddy of mine, Zach Miller, popped in saying, hypothetically, if you did already buy the car, how long should you wait until getting pre-approved? I don't know if you know off the top of your head, is it even much of a credit hit when you apply to get a car loan?
I'm not sure, but I think the biggest thing is that the people that we work with, especially the local lenders, this is why it's super important to have someone good in your corner because they're going to walk you through all of this kind of stuff. And so I don't know if it's a huge credit hit, but it will obviously change that debt to income. And so I think that it could potentially impact your purchase power is really the way that I would look at it first. Because as long as you're paying your credit down on time and you're consistent on that, you can always get your small little credit hits back up pretty quick. So
yeah, I would say it's probably not the credit hit. If there is a credit hit, it's probably going to adjust itself after a month or two. So then the next question after that, like you said, is debt to income. So you would just have to look at what are your monthly debt payoffs that you're doing, and is there any of those before you apply for the home loan that you could take care of? And the easiest one, and probably the most beneficial for anyone's personal finances, is making sure you don't have any rolling debt like credit cards or anything like that. So if you get that paid off, the car loan, obviously, if you just got a car loan, you're probably not paying that off tomorrow. So there's nothing you could do about it unless you want to wait to apply for a home loan after you pay off the car, which in most cases, people really don't have that much time. So I would just look at any other source of debt you have and can I pay off any of this before applying for the home loan? And then I would say go for it.
Yeah.
Do you want to go to the next one?
Sure. So the next one I had on there is never skip a home inspection. Now, I come from the time where when I started in real estate back in 2021, there was 1,300 homes in the market in the Des Moines area, and everything you did was a competition. So one of the first things people started to do was to slash those home inspections, which was crazy. So I grew up in my real estate journey with slashing inspections, and this was super common with appraisal gaps and everything like that. One of the things that I would heavily lean against is finding other ways, other points of leverage in your offer so that you can keep that home inspection on there as much as possible. There are just so many different factors that you can find yourself in. And everybody these days in America seemingly is pretty tight with their cash, right? And so, what you never want is to jump into something and have these high major capital expenses. So when you're going into these things, making sure that you know how old the roof is, making sure that the HVAC systems are okay. In Iowa, we have a lot of weather. So think about foundation, water issues, all of that kind of stuff. These aren't small things that you want to gloss over, which is why I think it's super important. And on the back end of it too, that's our job as realtors, is to come in there and help you find all the ways to negotiate to get you the best terms, the best offer. I just don't think that skipping the home inspection is one of the things that I would recommend in any of that kind of stuff moving forward, whether you're a brand new home buyer or, second or third time home buyer. So,
and honestly, the market that we're in right now too, like, unless we're talking like a complete dump of a house, skipping that home inspection, I really don't think is going to get you the advantage on the other side. Like, I don't think you're going to get that much better of a deal on a home that's being marketed as move-in ready if you say, hey, I'll skip the home inspection. The other thing I would say too is, like, don't be afraid. I always tell people this. Most of the time, your due diligence period for inspection is 10 business days. I encourage people to schedule it as soon as possible, because after that home inspector goes through and they're doing just a visual inspection, they're pointing out things that they think might be concerns, but they're not electricians, they're not HVAC specialists, they're not roof specialists. They're just people that have a really good source of general knowledge that can point out issues. But don't be afraid, if there's anything you're concerned about, to get answers to those questions before moving forward. So if there's questions about the roof, don't be afraid to get someone out there that is a specialist to actually look at the roof and say, it has some life left to it, or this needs to be replaced tomorrow. Same thing with plumbing, same thing with electric. Like, those are issues that are really, really expensive to fix. And you want to know the answers before you move past that home inspection period. The other thing, honestly, I've started recommending this to no matter what type of house they're buying. How many of your buyers get sewer scope done?
All of them. Unless I just had one dealer recently where the sewer was already collapsed. So we knew that going in, and they were already planning to replace it. But on that inspection addendum, we made sure that we put on there that not only are they replacing the sewer line, but that they would have to rescope it as well to make sure that we can see that you're getting all the way to the city tap and everything was done properly. So, but I always recommend that nowadays.
that's an add-on that I try to really, really encourage people to ask. Yes, it is a little bit more of an upfront cost, but you really want to know what that sewer line looks like before you're closing too, because that's yet another one of those potentially expensive repairs. And if that issue comes up just after you close, it can be debilitating to some buyers that we have, where it's
You
just
also have to think as your home inspection as the leverage that you have when you're negotiating some of these items. And
yeah,
so if you don't do the radon test, if you don't do your sewer scope and you come across something like that, again, the sewer lateral is going to be one of your major expenses. So there's guys out there and everybody's different. If you were to go call a local plumbing company, it might be a little bit more expensive, but some of these inspectors use fantastic cameras now, and they could be maybe $120 to $200 per sewer scope, which is worth its weight in gold if you find a collapsed sewer or something like that, because it's not always easy to find. There are homeowners out there, let's just say 1 to 2 occupants in the house, very lightly used. Maybe they're an older couple or something like that. On a house that we had this year, it was a single gal, older, very lightly used sewer lateral. The whole thing was collapsed, but you didn't know because there was only one person using it. So you had no idea, until you did that. And so to me, it ended up being, that one was actually a smaller project. It was $10,200 for them to fix it. And sometimes it could be closer to $30,000 depending on how long the line is or something like that. So to me, I always recommend it. It's worth its weight in gold. And if you get a clean sewer scope back, $120 to $200, well worth it. So
yeah. And I mean, in the Des Moines area, if it's a certain age of house, it might be Orangeburg, and the sellers never knew. So for those of you that don't know, Orangeburg, the second there is an issue with it, the whole line has to be replaced. You can't just do a repair on it. So those are really, really expensive. And yeah, I mean, $10,000 is kind of sort of the minimum that I've been hearing lately for a full replacement of one. It's just crazy. You want to go to number 3?
Yeah. So number 3 would be exploring rate lowering strategies. So when I say exploring rate lowering strategies, I think this is another key reason to have a great local lender in your pocket, because they're going to be able to look out for different assistance programs and different programs that you qualify to potentially get you a grant or something like that as well. I think one of the other things that people kind of gloss over is, in new construction specifically, there are certain ways to finance. Sometimes the companies in town will have a in-house lender or something like that that'll do rate buy downs and all sorts of stuff like that. So that's something that sometimes people have no clue about. They think, oh my goodness, interest rates are close to 6%, but you could look, and certain builders out there might have, hey, if you use my in-house lender, we'll get you a 4.99 rate, which could save you hundreds of dollars on something like that. So I think
it makes it more comparable to buying a home that is $50,000-$60,000 less. I mean, depending on what price points you're looking at. So yeah, getting a lower rate might be a big advantage.
I think one of the other things is exploring the different types of loans. So think FHA, USDA, VA. When I sit down for my buyer consultations with any buyer that I'm working with, each person is different, right? So I try to figure out what makes the most sense for them. And then when we connect them with a lender, they're going to do the exact same thing, where everybody's going to be pre-vetted and we know exactly what situation financially makes the most sense. And then you talk about how to strategize when you're putting in offers around those kind of things. And so to me, there's a lot of different potential possibilities out there, but you really have to dig deep, whether it's the realtor or the lender that can help you figure these things out. Definitely something to look into, because especially for first-time homebuyers, there's a lot of cool options out there for people, and different grants that the city of Des Moines specifically can help with. So there's a lot of different options out there for people.
Yeah. You want to talk about moving to an area?
Moving to an area that fits your lifestyle. Okay. So this one, I think, is pretty simple, but at the same time, sometimes people will see a price point of a house, or they'll find a house that they really love. And when you drive out there, they're like, oh man, maybe I don't love it as much, But one thing that's helped me with buyers that I work with on a regular basis is making sure that the house fits your lifestyle. So think about the schools, the commute to work, the locality of it. You know what I mean? If I am a Drake Bulldogs fan, how close am I to the Knapp Center? Where can I go see some basketball games? Something like that. So researching different school districts, visiting the neighborhood, and I think just making sure that you're doing your due diligence on the area that you're living also makes a huge difference on purchasing. So,
yeah, and I think there's been multiple polls and surveys that I've seen done, and one of the number one reasons people end up moving is because of the location. And a lot of that has to do with like there was a lifestyle change that made the location that they were in not work. But I think another part of it has to do that people, especially if they're on a tighter budget, have to make some sort of compromise. And that's the one that in their head seems the easiest. But once you actually start living out what your life looks like at that house, every single year it becomes more and more inconvenient and it starts to bother you more and more. And I think you win in real estate when you buy a home and you can hold on to it for a very, very long time. So if you can find a home that is the perfect location that might need some changes, I think that is better doing that than it is moving 45 minutes away from where you work, where you're having a 45-minute commute every day because you cannot change the location of a house. So, and just think like Steven said, think about things that are important to you. Think about things that you're going to a lot. Like, so for example, like if I was to buy another home, I love my gym that I'm at. I want to be close to that gym. Like, because it's going to be less likely that I go to that gym at 5 a.m. in the morning if it's all of a sudden 25 minutes away or 30 minutes away as opposed to 15 like it is now. Think about, like you said, Drake Bulldogs. The other thing to think about too is walkability really, really important to you too? Are there things that you can actually walk to from that property? If it's not important to you, that's fine. But if walkability is important to you while you're there, think about like, okay, is there even anything we can walk to here? Everything like that. Or would it be convenient to walk to certain things from here? I think location is really, really underrated. I think it's one of the first things I talk to my buyers about. And I think it should be the first thing on everyone's list is like, where exactly do I want to be?
That was one of the major reasons that when coming from Ames, I grew only 35 minutes from Des Moines area, typically. I've had family in West Des Moines. We love West Des Moines. And that was one of the biggest reasons why we moved out there. I mean, I have 3 kids now. So where we live specifically, near parks, near walking trails, biking trails, all sorts of different things like that make it easy for us to live the lifestyle that we want to live. And you're right. You don't want to get out somewhere that you don't love and all of a sudden it doesn't fit your lifestyle and you always have to travel somewhere else to do what you like the most. So
let's talk about number 5.
No major capital expenses. Okay, so what I mean by capital expenses is mainly your big ticket items that could potentially come back on your home inspection or something like that. These are things that I would always lean on negotiating during the offer period when you're putting an offer in on a home. But things like your HVAC, your roof, your furnace, all of that kind of stuff to foundation. You don't ever want to jump into a home that has a ton of major capital expenses that you don't have the money for, or something that could creep up later that you could have found through your inspection period when you're putting in the offer. So that's another one that seems kind of simple, but there's actually a lot more nuance to it when you're going through the offer and working things out. And so the key is to just try to keep as much cash in your pocket and not have to do that on the back end. And there's a lot of different ways around that by making sure that you're properly doing your home inspection and things like that. So,
yeah. And it's kind of funny that Zach is watching. When Zach purchased his house a few years back in Ankeny, it was perfect for exactly what they talked about as far as their wants and needs. The only real drawback of the house, and we knew this before we even got an inspection done, was that the HVAC was old and the roof appeared to be a little older. And I was like, hey, I hadn't really talked to you about this yet. My bad. But let's offer what we think the fair price is for those conditions, but let's also get a seller paid home warranty in there. Yeah. And I was like, just because like if those things do break within a year, you'll have help with the replacement cost of it. And I told them like they don't replace 100%, but it'll make it quite a bit cheaper than if you were just paying for it out of pocket. Sure enough, the AC and the furnace broke within the first year, and the home warranty helped pay for the replacement of both of those things. They got a brand new thing. And then in the inspection, we made sure to tell the inspector, like, hey, we know the roof is old. Give it a thorough once over and make sure that it's working as needed now. And then I believe on his home insurance, he got a little bit better coverage on the roof, and he paid a little bit more money for that because he knew that that would be an issue that comes up. But just it's stuff to think about, and it's not really the sexy stuff, you know, and it's not the things that people fall in love with when they look at a house. Like a lot of buyers will fall in love with the cosmetics. Does the floor plan make sense? I know pretty much every buyer I have can feel out all of that stuff for themselves, but I always feel like I'm there to say, is this home priced properly? And what are these big ticket items that you're not necessarily thinking about when we're looking at the house?
And that's truly where our expertise comes in handy the most when you're negotiating these deals. Is no deal is going to be perfect. There's going to be give and take on everything that you're doing when you're negotiating through some of these things. You're not always going to get them to replace a roof. That's actually really hard to do. Foundation, replacing the big ticket items, but even some of the things that you mentioned, jumping on a home warranty. There are ways around certain things to ease it up a little bit. And as long as it's priced right, making sure that you're getting the best price for the current conditions that you're purchasing for. And so again, the key is to try to steer away from having multiple pitfalls in your future as much as possible. It's not, I mean, it never fails. Once the house is yours and I hand my clients the keys, something's going to break. You know what I mean? Something in the back is going to go wrong. Your sump pump is going to fail when we have a storm later today. You know, there's going to be things, and that's comes with home ownership in general. There's always going to be things. And once you own it, trust me, as 6-year, you know, coming up on almost our 7th year of home ownership now, I mean, we had our master shower. We had a crack in our tile in our master shower. And on Christmas Day, the first year that I owned my home, there was a drip from my ceiling in my kitchen. And my wife's uncle was like, man, your ceiling's leaking. And that was from the shower. And I was like, you're one. And then I realized, oh man, actually the shade of white on the ceiling is a different shade of white, meaning someone cut a hole up here. And we didn't know that didn't come back on my inspection, you know?
Yeah.
It was a funny little story that it's like, once you purchase something, you're always going to have something come up, you know, it never fails. But working with the right people can obviously help you try to mitigate some of those things and try to make sure that you don't have, you know, multiple issues on the road as much as possible. So it's never perfect, but you can definitely, there are ways to be more aware of what's actually going on in your house before you purchase it.
Yeah. All right, let's jump into mine, and then you can ask me some follow-up questions after I go to mine. I think one of the number one things you should do after starting to talk to a lender to get an idea of your budget, once that budget is set, I think you need to sit down and whoever you're purchasing the home with, if it's a wife or your single self or whatever, you need to clearly define what you want in a home and what you need in a home, and you need to clearly define which ones are different. Because I feel like a lot of buyers get caught up and they create this whole checklist, but that whole checklist isn't necessary, you know? And as an agent, someone representing you, I want to know what your needs are. Like, hey, Thomas, I don't want to look at a home that only has one bathroom. Cool. But when you're telling me all these wants, I need to know, well, we would like for it to be fenced in, but we can install a fence and everything like that. Just clearly having that defined, I think really helps you start to look at the current inventory, and it really helps me narrow down what homes I'm going to send to you that I think will be possibilities. And once you have that clearly defined, like, hey, these are all the homes on the market that fit our needs. They're in this price range. And then it really helps you start comparing those homes apples to apples, and it kind of helps you start doing that process of elimination to hopefully where you can narrow down these are our 1 or 2 favorite homes that are currently on the market. And then from there, it just becomes as simple as, do we want to offer on these homes, or are we going to stay patient and keep waiting and keep looking and looking for new inventory to come up? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And sometimes that, the way that I talk to my buyers is sometimes the wants and needs start off broad and you get into a couple showings and it starts narrowing. The key is to try to narrow that focus as much as possible. And so it's normal to start broad because on our searches on the MLS, sometimes you can't put in that I want it completely fully fenced or I want certain things on there, But as you get further in and you start looking at some of these things, having that narrow path is not only going to save you time, but you're also going to be making sure that you're only seeing things that you're interested in offering on and getting into the right things sooner as well, so that you're actually offering and you're competing on the right things that fit, your lifestyle as much as possible.
I will also say too, and this is going to kind of dovetail into my next tip, but the more defined your needs are, the more your buyer's agent, like agents like us that work at, not only are we part of the Sphere team, which is now, what are we at, 8 agents?
Yep. Yeah.
Sphere team, but we're also part of Remax Precision, which is one of the biggest brokerages in the area. We can start talking to other agents about what you're looking for. Yep. And get an idea of what's coming up, and then hopefully get you a jump on listings the day that they're listed, or maybe even before they're listed, and give you a chance to offer on those before anyone else can. So
the Remax Precision pipeline that we have is fantastic. It's a huge asset to us to be able to put buyer wants and buyer needs in there to see who's got off-market properties or something coming up. That's actually, I've been able to utilize that already a couple different times, which has been a super big help. So,
yeah. So that dovetails into my next thing. I don't think a lot of buyers do this, and I think that they should start thinking about being more aggressive with it. When you're looking, you're pre-approved, you're ready to write on something, tell absolutely everyone that you're looking to buy a house, and tell them what you're looking for, because you never know what kind of great situation you can get yourself into when you're buying a house from someone that you have some sort of connection with, and that makes the negotiation process super, super easy. And you could end up getting a really, really good deal if you buy from a friend or family or someone that is loosely connected with you.
Or if they bring you into an area that maybe there's not a lot of inventory in, for example, that's helped a ton too, where we've done, for clients in the past, these I have a buyer letters or something like that to try to get it in there. And that's what we do as agents. But you as the buyer can also do something similar, which is really good, because if you're looking to get into a specific area, out here where our office is at in West Des Moines, there's a pretty tight inventory in some specific spots. And so if you're looking to get into an area like this, it's not as easy, but drumming up something like that and potentially drumming up some areas or some different homes that were never listed, that's also another big help. So,
yeah. It's just, you truly never know. Even if you're talking to someone that doesn't currently own a home, or they don't currently own a home that you're interested in, just tell them. You never know who they're talking to. People that are in the process of getting their home ready to list or getting ready to buy, talk to people about it all the time. So just make sure to let people know. You genuinely never know what happens. A majority of times, is it going to work out in something? No. But you all you need is that one house. Just you truly never know. This next tip I have is for all of my, and this is not a fault of your own buyers that potentially are listening, all of my emotional buyers out there. When you're offering on a house and you're getting really, really deep into a negotiation, you got to know when to walk away. There are just some situations where it is the smart move to say, hey, it doesn't make sense for me to buy the home at this price, or it doesn't make sense for me to give in on this term. Like last week, I literally just had a buyer offer on a home, and they're a VA client and they need an inspection, and the home they were trying to offer on wouldn't let them do an inspection. They didn't even want to pay for the termite inspection. And it was just a no-go. I was like, even if you could get this at an amazing price, it doesn't make sense for you. And you just got to trust your agent when they're talking to you about it. And you got to know when to walk away. And I would say, even if you are going to walk away, a lot of times that's not necessarily the end of the discussion. It puts you in a really, really good power position to prove to the other side, like, I don't need this as much as you need this. Like,
that's the point that I was just about to touch on. I mean, having your baseline of, hey, this is kind of a non-negotiable line of where I would walk away. There's a lot of leverage in having the power of saying, hey, I'm willing to let this deal go. Not all the time, depending on what market you're in. And, every sub market is different. Back in 2021, these aren't things that you would have probably done, but maybe in 2026, you know what I mean? There's different potential options out there that have this happen. But what happens when you put the ball back in somebody else's court? Sometimes they'll come back and say, hey, I'm willing to negotiate this if that's going to break the deal up or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there is a lot of leverage in that when you have that, but it's also more empowerment for you as the buyer too, to have that baseline and know, hey, I've already talked to my lender. I've already talked to my agent. I know all of the wants and needs that I have. And once I get here, price wise, just don't put yourself in a position where you're going to feel uncomfortable and have buyer remorse down the line. That's another thing. You never want to get yourself into a situation where you get in, you're like, man, I love the house, but my goodness, I'm stressing out every single day for my payment or now all the other debt that you have and things like that. It's just not a good way to live. You want to be able to enjoy it and, have a lot of fun with it. So,
yeah. We kind of touched on this with some of your tips, but I don't think buyers think long-term enough was my next tip. I have buyers a lot of times, young couples that reach out to me, and I don't try to be nosy, but I ask them, like, hey, are you planning on having kids? Like, are you getting more dogs? Is there any other lifestyle changes that you can for sure see happening in the next 5 years? Because it might sound crazy, but you need to think about how your life is going to change when you go from having kid number 1 to kid number 2, or having no kids to kids. Like for me, for example, when I bought this house, I was a single dude. So that was way out in the future. But if I would have sat there and thought about it, it's like, hey, if I have kids in this house, it's just not going to work. Like, this floor plan doesn't work for kids. Now, would that have really changed my decision? No, probably not. But at least I thought about it.
Right.
And like I said earlier, the longer you can stay in a house, that's when the equity starts to snowball so fast. Once you get past year 4 or 5, the longer you can keep the house, the more money you will make when you sell it. So
it's always a little bit of a tighter margin if you're only in a house for a year or 2 years or something like that. Now you're always going to have the same main reasons why people move, right? Job change. Let's just say, you've got kids in different schools and all sorts of different things like that. There's a death in the family, different things like that. There's always going to be the same reasons why people are moving. But being in a home long-term is like once you start getting to that 5-year mark, that's really truly where you start to win. It's just a little bit tougher, to do something when the equity is just not there. So
yeah. And job change is another one I don't think people think about enough too. Like, you're looking at a home, and we talked about location. Obviously, people want to live close to where they work, but maybe that's not as big of a deal for you if hey, I don't necessarily love my job. I might be looking for something different. And then it starts to come into like, okay, well, let's look close to where the wife works, or let's focus on being centrally located. So no matter where I end up working, I should be close and stuff like that too. Yeah. The last one I wrote down is, and this is something, if you have a great lender partner, they'll be able to do this on every single house that you look at, is know what that purchase price equates to with your monthly payment. Because house that's listed for $260 in West Des Moines, for various different factors, will have a different monthly payment in West Des Moines than it will if you're looking at one, say, in Des Moines or Ankeny or stuff like that. There's so many things that go into account to equate that monthly payment that you need to make sure you're looking at all those factors before you make an offer on a house. So your taxes, your insurance, and then obviously the type of loan that you're getting. The other thing to think about there too, you already talked about it with rate buy downs too, is knowing what it looks like to get into that new construction home that for whatever reason is offering that 4.9. Okay, well, what does that equate to if I were to buy a house at 6.5? Like, what's
Mhm.
that price? What does that purchase price difference look like? And
Yeah.
actually knowing that before you offer on a home, I think is a really, really good idea.
I think it also goes back to that pre-home buying budget planning that you can do. You know what I mean? Knowing you can know hard numbers before you go into any of this kind of stuff. You know, there is power in that, feeling comfortable in that. It's a lot easier to make decisions on the fly, which you will almost guaranteed have to do at some point during your real estate transaction, whether it's on the front end, whether you're purchasing or it's negotiating items and stuff like that. When you know that budget and you know your threshold, there's a lot of power in making quick and solid decisions on there too. So, and you're going to feel a lot better about those decisions because you've already planned for them.
And yeah, the other thing too, we talked about it with negotiation too. Like if there's room for the price to go down too, talk to your lender about how much of a credit you would have to get to do a rate buy down instead of just decreasing the purchase price.
Right.
And make that decision which one is more important to you. Obviously, like long term, actually, I don't even know if what I'm about to say is correct. Long term, it can seem appealing to get the purchase price down as low as possible because then when you sell it, hopefully your equity is in a good position. But if you get that rate buy down and decrease your monthly payment, that frees up monthly cash for you to maybe invest or just live more comfortably too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
knowing all those decisions that can go into it. So I also made a post yesterday asking my friends and followers to comment what they wish they would have done or other tips that they would have for future home buyers. So some of these we're going to be doubling up on, but we could just read through them and give our thoughts. This is my dad. He's my top fan, as you can see here. Um, his last two homes that he bought were custom built. The main issues were what I didn't do or didn't think of. I have some opinions on that here in a second. My main advice would be to think of everything you need / to have to have before you worry about what you want to have. So I talked about that, clearly defining your needs and wants.
Yep.
The funniest thing, how many custom build buyers have you had? Zero. Okay.
Zero.
Have you had it? I've
had
people
like new construction, like, but not custom built yet.
Not completely.
It's kind of funny because I feel like I've got a lot of friends who are right in that like second house phase, maybe not on the forever home type yet. Not that that's always the case necessarily, but yeah, I've not had a custom yet.
It is so funny. Every single person that I talk to that has had built a custom home within months walks through it and be like, oh, if I were to do it again, I'd change this.
Yeah.
So it's just like, yeah. What he's saying is exactly right, is to think about what you need / what you want. And then also I would talk to as many people as possible about home design and everything like that before you start doing a custom home. Cause there's just so many different things that you might not have thought of that can make floor plans weird or finishes that you think you want to compromise on that you really should keep. There's just so much different stuff and you could get really into the weeds. And we have multiple great builders that do great at custom homes and do a lot of custom homes. And having consults with all of those builders might be a good idea as well too. What was the other? Oh, have you been out to that Walk Your Floor Plan company yet?
No, but I've not. I've been invited, but I haven't been able to go yet. That also looks amazing.
I think that's a really good tool because, like,
that's a great idea.
Yeah, you can literally walk your floor plan,
life size.
Life size. Obviously, they're not going to be able to stage it for you, but you could get a really, really good idea of what the space would feel like, you know?
A lot better than me using my measuring app or a measuring tape when I'm out there trying to say, hey, this room is 10 by 12 with 9-foot ceilings, you know what I mean? To actually be inside of something and have a life-size version. I think that's a really cool concept.
Yeah, and I would also say too, with the custom built thing, is, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, I would hold off on doing a custom home as long as you possibly can, because the second you do it, you want that to be a forever home. And those custom homes budget, you don't want to be making compromises to your budget on a custom home. Like, you really want to make sure that you can afford it, because it is a pain to sell those quickly. Custom homes are normally very, very customized to the
That's how
buyer.
unique you get, right?
Yeah, yeah. So you want that to be a home that you're going to be happy with for 10, 15, 20 years. So wait. There are multiple compromises that you can make. I'm sure you've worked with buyers that have bought from, you've done like built orders where they did add-ons of floor plans and stuff like that, and it's semi-custom.
Yep.
You can get in a lot of that stuff quite a bit cheaper than going a full-blown custom.
Yep.
So those are options to think about. Let's go next one. We got Jared Nicolaisen with Key Mortgage. Great lender partner that we always talk about. So he'd be a great person to talk about whether you're ready or not. He said, I bought 2 houses now, a townhouse and a single family. His best advice is to get an inspection, which we already talked about.
Yep.
Also, buying a primary residence is less about the numbers and more about having a spot to live in. Not saying payments and cash to close aren't important. They are the most important, but don't get hung up over $2,500. And then he says he wished we had put more down, but paying for a wedding and buying a house simultaneously made that hard. So that is another thing I did talk about earlier. It's going to sound kind of hypocritical as about being able to walk away. But when you are negotiating, you have to realize, like, am I splitting hairs here, or is this a major factor in the negotiation?
Yeah.
Like, I've had deals fall apart where I was representing on the seller side where we were only $2,000 apart.
Yep.
And it's just like, are you really, like, you must not have loved the house that much, because if you're going to walk away over $2,000, which would equate to what? Not even $100 a monthly payment, right? Like, it's just, you got to take a step back and think about that. You can answer this too. I feel like, not necessarily on the negotiation part, but like on the inspection negotiation, I feel like a lot of people get way more emotional than they really should.
And what I was just going to say, legit, I was just going to attach this to the last one, but keep going.
Yeah. Obviously, like, if there's major things that need to be fixed, like, walk away if they don't want to fix it. But I've had buyers be like, well, why don't they fix this outlet that doesn't work quite right? It's like, well, it works, but it doesn't work quite right. Like, just small little things. And they get so frustrated over one electrician coming out for an hour, like, and you really got to sit back and take a step back, take a deep breath, and assess, like, am I overreacting here, and getting too emotional over a very small thing.
It's hard not to get emotional in the house buying process in general, especially when you're doing negotiations and you're on the back and forth end on, somebody feeling like they want to have the upper hand. That's the other thing. I try to be as logical as possible during some of these things. I try to give people as much information that I can so that they have the most leverage to make the decisions that they need to make moving forward. But truly, it's also our job to bring people off the ledge a little bit and make sure that they are seeing things from a clear lens on, hey, are we going to lose this house over $2,000? Is it worth it? There's a lot of different creative ways to try to save these deals. And I think it's one thing if you've exhausted all these options and we can't figure it out, and truly it's a huge deal to the buyer or something like that. But to me, if you can take the emotion out of it, I think you can save yourself a lot of stress as much as possible, because you can have a clear, logical head on making these decisions. It just makes it a lot easier. And so
I would also say too, with the inspections and getting inspection items fixed too, in my experience, it helps a ton when you have an inspector that is actually willing to talk through what that issue that they pointed out actually means too. Because then the buyer gets a lot more comfortable with, like, in the hypothetical world that a seller doesn't fix this, am I
Yeah.
comfortable with that issue being in the home, you know?
One thing I like to do as much as possible on all of my deals on the buy side is, as long as it fits my schedule and I can be there, I'm going to try to be there. But I try to let the inspector on our buy side transactions get through about 95% of the home inspection. I like to pop in about 30 minutes. Maybe they're on the sewer scope at the very end, right? I like to pop in and have them give us the nuts and bolts of what's going to be coming back on our inspection report, only because there are certain things, again, that these inspectors are going to have to put down as hazardous, or, maybe it's something that they just qualifies as a hazardous issue or a bigger issue. But it's nice to hear their experience over their 25-year career on why, hey, I'm putting this down as hazardous, but here's how to fix it. And it's actually not that hard. You know what I mean? And that can also be a ton of leverage when you're negotiating. So you're also negotiating on the right things, and you can know, hey, I don't have to worry about this because it's actually a pretty easy fix or something like that. So to me, that's a huge point. That helps a ton.
And if you run into those items where you're like, oh, that's really not that big of a deal for me, or oh, I can fix that myself, whatever. In the state of Iowa now, this recently changed. The seller can just request your full inspection report.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of good listing agents will do that because they want to see the full inspection report. But what they also might see, and this is thinking about it from the other side of things, is they might see, oh, this inspector pointed out like 80 different things, and they only requested for 5 or 10 of these to be fixed.
Right.
And then all of a sudden that seems a little bit more reasonable. And they're like, well, the buyer's really just trying to fix what's most important to them.
Well, and the catch-22 on that, on the flip side, is if somebody asked for that full report and they weren't aware of certain things in their home, you also have to be prepared to potentially disclose new things. If new things are coming to light, new material facts come to light. So there is kind of some strategy around, again, each property is its own beast, right? And so there's different strategy around that. But typically when you're doing your negotiations, when I send over inspection requests that I'm asking for someone to fix, I'll copy and paste, or I'll print off a little picture for them with the context of exactly what the inspector says, so that the seller knows, okay, this is exactly what they're saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So they have a clear idea. All right. I think we got one more. Yep. Bree Hunwardson. Super glad they got an inspection and used it as leverage to negotiate repairs and know what to expect to repair ahead of time. Would have hate to move in and find mold or deer. I'm not going to be able to say that word unexpectedly.
Yeah, you're good.
Their house that they bought in Norwalk a while ago had some mold, not just in the attic, but a pretty easily accessible crawl space. So we were super glad that we found that, and the seller was reasonable and got it fixed. And don't just judge by the listing pictures. Pictures can make a property look way better than it is, or sometimes they just don't do it justice. If it checks boxes on things that are important to you, go look at it. That is a big one that I just talked to a buyer about the other day. And they said, well, don't most of the listing photos make the house seem better than it really is? And I was like, I've had multiple scenarios where not enough photos were posted and the photos just weren't good. And I encouraged my buyer to go look at the house, and they offered on it. Yeah. And were we kind of taking advantage of a listing agent that maybe wasn't doing a great job? Yes, but we got a really, really good deal on a house. So you just don't know for sure until you go look at it. But like she said, like, does it check boxes? Let's go look, and that's what we talked about with wants and needs. It makes it very, very easy once something gets listed that's like, oh, yep, checks all the needs. Let's go look. You're not wasting our time by asking us to go tour one more home. You just never really know until you walk through it. It would be the big thing.
Pictures are better and better now than ever before. We work with some of the best photographers and videographers in the game. And so, everything is going to look good on the outside, but feeling the condition when you walk in, feeling the quality when you're walking through the house, you can't do that when you're just, scrolling Zillow. So I think it's huge to get in there and check things out for yourself.
Yeah. And unless the photos are really, really high quality, and I'm sure you've had this experience before too, but like hard surface flooring looks about the same on photos. Like And not until you go see it do you realize like, oh, this is a really nice LVP, or this is a legit hardwood floor.
Yep.
Or you show up there and it's like, oh, this is just the cheapest possible laminate ever. Like,
Yep.
you don't know those things until you go see it.
I do one of those granite kits for the countertops. You don't really know until you're knocking on it. So, yep.
Yeah. I want to get your opinion on this because it just kind of triggered a thought of mine that doesn't necessarily have to do with how do you feel about photographers editing photos? I feel like I'm seeing more and more of photographers taking liberties with the yard and making it look better than it really is. Or even one of them I saw, they clearly made the yard look bigger than it really is.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking wide angle lens, like they clearly manipulated like the depth of the yard. How do you feel about that?
I go back and forth on this all the time because everybody wants blue skies, green grass to, elevate what some of mainly the exterior photos do. But the one thing that I steer clear from too much of that kind of stuff, and the main reason is if I've got green grass on the front of that photos and they come out to my listing and all of a sudden they see just patchy brown, this or that, it's totally going to throw people off, and it's going to put something in their head that maybe these people aren't as honest, or maybe these people aren't as upfront. What else in the house are they trying to edit? What other things are they trying to do? You never want to set that precedence. And so to me, I typically try to steer clear of all that kind of stuff as much as possible. When I first started in 2021, I feel like people were way more tisk on it. Like, no way, don't do that. It's becoming way more popular now. It's so much easier. It's so much easier now with all the tools and AI and everything under the sun to virtually stage, to do all that kind of stuff. Some of it's right, but at the end of the day, I don't think anybody's truly perfected it well enough to where they're not catching themselves. Sometimes you'll see one picture with green grass and the same front yard on the back end of the pictures is going to have, brown grass. And you're like, what are we doing with our lives here?
Yeah.
So it's always kind of funny when you find things, you know what I mean? But to me, trying to give the truest picture of the house, I mean, there's a lot more strategy behind that. Maybe you're only doing pictures on a nice sunny day. And when it's rainy, we're going to cancel. We're not going to go there. Not everybody's timeline matches up. So you have to work that out with your seller up front. But there are all sorts of timing, during the day when the sun is coming through your house, all sorts of stuff. If that's what you're going for, try to match up the times to best showcase it as much as possible. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I genuinely wonder if it's going to get to a point where it starts needed to be disclosed if any of the photos have been AI edited or manipulated in any way. Yeah. I just don't know where that line is because, like, obviously
it has to do those similar to photos. If you guys ever see photos with similar to, it doesn't mean that this is actually showing the house. It's showing something similar to the house. For example, right? They have to put that down. If this is edited, normally if someone's going to virtually stage two, they will disclose sometimes this is virtually staged.
Yeah.
People do that, and it's a good precedence to set because truly people are going to look at that and go, holy smokes, that's amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's always good to be upfront with people. People are going to sniff it out later down the road anyway, no matter what. It never fails. So being upfront with people right out of the gate is always the best way.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining, Steven. I think this was a good conversation. If anyone is watching this not live, still don't be afraid to comment with questions that you want me to answer next week or topics you want me to talk about next week. Steven will probably be back on at some point in time too. If you want Steven back, comment that as well. Thank you so much, man.
Appreciate it.